Welcome to class. This video is about centering on the potter's wheel. This is our wheel wall. We've got a bunch of wheels in the studio. I will show you the proper names for each of the parts that make up our potter's wheel. This is a potter's wheel. The parts that you need to know that are of this pottery wheel are, first and foremost, the wheel head. This is the part of the wheel that we work on the most. This part spins in a counterclockwise fashion. In our studio, it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, the wheel will be spinning counterclockwise. That's our wheel head. When I'm talking about the wheel, I'm talking about the entire thing. When I'm talking about the wheel head, I'm talking about the metal part on the top. Next is our splash pan. Splash pan helps to catch any clay, any water while we're working on the wheel. It keeps you from getting dirty. So let's make sure that it's installed properly. This splash pan is in two parts. They interlock together. Press into each other and they go around the wheel. So we're going to make sure that they stay nice and tight all the way around it. That's our splash pan. Here's our stool. Each stool is a little bit different. We want to make sure that we have a stool with every wheel that's the right height for our wheel. Next, we have our foot pedal. This foot pedal controls the speed of the wheel. So on our control panel here, we've got our power button. I'm going to switch that on, and I'm going to show you this pedal is a set it and forget it kind of wheel. So I can set it to that speed, and the wheel is going to continue to spin at that speed. It's not like driving where you have to continue and hold down the pedal. This wheel, we set it and forget it, that speed. So we can control our speed, go full speed, which we rarely do, and then we press all the way down and it stops the wheel entirely. Make sure that the wheel gets turned off. Here's a better view of our control panel. See how this light is turned off? When we switch it up, it turns on. That means that our wheel is on. After we clean our wheels, we will make sure that the wheel is turned off in that position. For these wheels, if it is in the reverse position, that means it's going counterclockwise, which is good. That's the direction that we want our wheel spinning. If it is in the forward position, it is the wrong way in this studio. So we want to make sure that after we clean, we make sure that it gets to reverse. Before we sit down at the wheel, we want to make sure we have all of our tools and our clay wedged. So let's grab our clay, grab our bucket, get it filled up with some water, and grab our tools. When we fill up our bucket with water, we only need about halfway. After we've filled up our bucket with water, we're going to make sure we grab each of our tools. So, quick little review. Here's our throwing sponge. We need a needle tool, potter's knife, wooden rib, metal rib, and a wire tool. Bring each of these tools with you to the wheel. After you've gotten your tools and your clay is prepared, you come down and you sit down at the wheel. When you sit at the wheel, you want to make sure that your legs are hugging the wheel and you are up nice and close. I do not want you to be able to see the floor when you look down. You need to be close enough that you cannot see the floor and that you are nice and close to the wheel. This is where your apron comes nice and handy. Sitting close to the wheel, I've got a dry wheel head. I've got no gap in between me and the wheel. I'm ready to start to throw. So I've got my clay. It's nice and dry. It's into a ball. It is wedged. It is now time to start to center. There's a few steps when it comes to centering. First and foremost, we want to make sure we've got a dry wheel head. Our piece of clay is dry as well. When we take our clay, we're going to make sure that we look at each of these rings. Each of these rings are spaced out evenly on the wheel. They're perfectly centered with the wheel, making sure that our wheel is on. We're gonna test out the speed just a little bit, just see what our pedal is like. So we can go full blast. We rarely go full blast on the wheel. We go maybe 3/4 of the speed is where we're going to be centering our clay. So taking our clay, our wheel is stopped. Looking at these rings, I'm going to throw my clay down as close as I can to the center. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Now I'm going to take a judgment call and look. Okay, so I'm looking at these rings. I've got quite a bit of a gap over here and not very much over here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move it over just a little bit so I can have a nice even way all the way around it. I want to make sure that I came to the wheel with a round piece of clay. If I came to the wheel with an irregular piece of clay, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to center. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to spin the wheel as slow as I can get it, and I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to press and tap on the sides. What this is going to do is tap center it. So I'm taking that, making it more round. Pressing it down onto the wheel, smacking it down, making it round. Okay, so I've done a lot of the work already to get this centered onto the wheel. Now I'm going to take my index finger and I'm going to seal it to the wheel. So the way that I do that, I anchor my arm into my leg. I'm going to press my finger into the clay, and what that is going to do is start to seal it down. Make sure that I do it all the way around. This ensures that no water gets underneath it, and now it's stuck to the wheel head. The only way that this is coming off is if I have too much friction, so I don't have enough water and it tears off, or I take my wire tool and I slide it underneath and I cut off my clay. Those are the only two ways that this clay is going to be coming off now. So if it continues to fly off of you, make sure you're adding enough water. So now that I've sealed it, slapped it down, I've made sure that I've got all of my tools, I'm sitting nice and close to the wheel, I'm going to go ahead and start to center. When I'm centering, my arms are anchored into my hips. So I'm creating this triangle, this nice strong triangle. So I'm not too far out here. I can be nice and close into my hips, making sure that I'm anchored. What that is going to do is make this a nice solid place for my hand, for the clay to move into and decide that it's going to stay there with you. So you're anchoring your arms in, and then that's the body mechanics of what we're going to be doing with our centering. So we're going to bring our clay up and then bring it back down. And each of those steps I will teach you on this next part. Let's go ahead and now dip our hands into the bucket of water. So my hands are nice and wet. I'm going to grab my sponge. I'm going to rest my hand on here just gently, and I'm going to drip some water onto it. Nice little spring. It's not a flash flood. We're just adding a little bit of water so the whole surface of our clay can have some lubricant. Water is that in its way. It is just so it can slide through our hands. As we add pressure, it's going to create a fine layer of slip, which is liquid clay on the outside. So we're working with our wet clay right now. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to press into it and I'm going to bring up my clay. So when I press on the sides, it only has one place to go, up, which is going to help with these irregular parts. See how it's bouncing a little bit? It goes bump, bump, bump. As I press in and I'm consistent with it, it's going to move out all of those parts. So I'm going to use this part of my hand and I'm going to squeeze into it, making sure that my arms are nice and anchored. Dip my hand into the water. I'm going to press in and move my clay up. So I'm pressing in. See where it's touching my hands? Right about there is where I'm putting all my pressure in. Some of you may want to interlock your fingers, press it in together so you can be nice and strong. You're going to move up nice and slow. Make sure that you're anchored into your body still. So now that I've got it come up, I'm going to bring it down. So I'll make sure that there's a little bit of water on it. I'm going to take my left hand on the outside. My right hand right here is going to be pressing down. So I'm pressing down on top, creating a little bit of a mushroom cloud. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to press into it a little bit. So as you can see, we're going to press in. See how it kind of evens it out a little bit? So I'm going to continue to do that motion. So I'm going to cone up and then I'm going to bring it down. So coning up, adding pressure all the way around so it comes up, and now I want to bring it back down. So I'm going to make sure there's some water, pressing down on my clay. If there's some ripples on the side, I'm going to press in with my left hand a little bit more. It's all about finding the balance in between each of the pressures, the side pressure and the top pressure. Left hand's going to do a majority of the side pressure, right hand's going to do the top pressure. So if it's dancing a little bit on the top, for instance, if we're dancing on the sides, I want left hand pressure. I'm pressing in with my left hand, easing out. Here's another thing to notice is if I were to do my motions, so I'm coning up, and then I'm pressing down. If I pull off too quick, see how it's moving a little bit? It's dancing a little bit. If I ease off my pressure, so I slowly release, I won't scare the clay. So I'm going to pull off nice and slow. What I mean by that is I'm releasing my pressure nice and slow, nice and even. So with this, I can remove some of the slip that's on my hands, scrape it on the sides of the bucket. I'm going to do that same motion, bringing it up. And then I'm going to bring it back down. So I can press my right hand on the top and on the side a little bit, pressing it down. One thing that you might find that you're having happen is you have a little bit of this clay skirt going on. What you can do, you can seal it off just like we did at the beginning. Remove some of that clay. We call it a speed bump sometimes because it bounces your hand. That happens when we don't press our hand all the way down to the bottom of the wheel head. Sometimes we're working only this part of the clay, but we're not working all the way down. So we want to make sure we remove that because that's just going to get in our way. We can do it with our finger, we can do it with our wooden knife or a wooden rib, whatever it may be. So, going to go through that motion one more time. Bringing it up. Pressure on the sides. Pressing right about there. Now I'm going to bring it down. Pressing down. Making sure that my arms are nice and anchored. I'm leaning into it. If I'm having any struggles with it moving back and forth, left hand pressure just a little bit more. If it's moving up and down on the top, right hand pressure on the top. Ease off nice and slow. The goal is to have the clay not moving at all. So I've got a little bit going on down there. Let's make sure that I ease into it. So if it's dancing a little bit on the sides, left hand pressure. Dancing on the top or isn't flat enough, right hand pressure. Making sure that we're pressing down, removing our clay slip. So it's going to make sure that it looks like it's not moving in any way. Another good way to test is to see, are my fingers moving like this? If not, we're good. Nice and even all the way around. Now let's troubleshoot some things that might be happening to you while you're on the wheel. So one thing that might be happening is you've got too much clay up on top and not enough clay at the bottom. We've got a really narrow base. What might be happening is you're putting too much pressure underneath. So your left hand is pressing a little bit too much turned. So you need to turn your left hand in just a little bit more. So the way that we can fix that, right hand's on top, left hand is going to start to press up and then curl your hand down. See how my right hand went down the side? So I'm pressing on the top, adding that pressure, then I'm going to roll it down. Kind of moving my hand slowly into my coning position again. So pressing it down into there. That may be one way to fix that issue. What if I'm getting my clay up and it's dancing like that? One thing that might be happening is you're pulling off way too fast. So you need to slowly release. Pull off nice and slow. Slowly release. If I pull off too quick, it's going to dance again. So I don't want to scare it. Clay gets scared pretty easily. So ease off your pressure. Nice and slow. Another possibility of something that might be happening, let's get it set up into it. You may be having too much clay down at the bottom. Let's say you've got this big mound that's going out like that. What is happening is you're not putting enough pressure down at the base of the wheel. And also, your hand is probably turned too much this way. Your hands are too much this way. You need them to straighten out just a little bit. So one thing that we can do that might help with solving this issue is taking our fingers and kind of squishing it in, pulling it in just a little bit more. We're trying to get all that clay back into there. So we're slowly pulling it in. We're essentially coning this one part. So we're pressing in nice and easy. We've got that clay that's brought back into the wheel. So now we can press in a little bit more using this part of our hand, pressing in, which is going to bring our clay back to the middle. Okay, another possibility of something that might be happening for you is it's moving back and forth. What might be happening, you're moving it like this and this and this, and the more you work it, the worse it's getting and all of that. The reason why, look at my elbows, I'm playing chicken wing over here, so I need to anchor my hands in and press in nice and slow. Anchor my hands in, press nice and slow. So bring it into my body, tighten it up, scoot in a little bit more if you need to. You need to be nice and close to the wheel. These are some tips for some things that might be happening to you. Something else that might be happening. Let's see if I can set it up for you. So what I'm doing, I'm drying out my piece because something that might be happening, you may not have enough water on it. So my hands are dry, my piece of clay is dry. I'm going to press and press and press and press and press and press. I'm going to keep going. I'm trying so hard, and then it tears it off. I'm like, what did I do wrong? I look at my hands, feel that clay, it's sticking. So I need to add more water. So when I'm adding that, I need to add a little bit more water while I'm going. So cut this off of the wheel, go re-wedge it, reuse this clay. It can totally be reused. So take this clay, mix it up. You got dry hands, you know how to wedge now, so go take that clay, take it to the table, wedge it up again, reuse it. It's not a failed piece. It can be reused over and over and over again until it's been fired. So I'm going to take off some of that clay. Here's another one. What if you came to the wheel and you had a piece like this? And what you do, you throw it onto the wheel, and you probably get it a little off-centered, and then you decide you're going to seal it off right where that is, and you're going to go for it. It's not even round, you didn't tap center anything at all. You're going to add some water, you're going to have your chicken wing arms. It's going to be so difficult. You're going to try and try and try. It's going to be so hard. You're pressing down onto it and all these things. But what you need to do is anchor your arms in, and you're going to press into it. And see how it's a lot more difficult to get it to work into the center. It's a lot harder. You need to brace yourself a little bit more, a lot bit more actually. So what you need to do, make sure that you set yourself up for success as you go through the process. So you've got a round ball of clay. Make sure it's nice and round. You've got these rings that are on the wheel. Make sure that you use those rings for your advantage. Then you're going to smack center. You're going to tap center it. Make sure that it's nice and round all the way around it. Then you're going to seal it. So I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to seal that clay. I want it a nice round circle all the way around it. Removing any clay, sealing it all the way down. Then I'm going to add some water and make sure it's nice and glossy. I'm going to press in from the sides, pulling it up nice and slow. Easing off nice and slow. Then I'm going to take my hands, I'm going to press into it, right hand down, pressing the clay down, left hand is anchored, easing off nice and slow. I've got these ripples, so now I'm going to take my left hand, a little bit more water, lean into it just a little bit more, right hand down, left hand, anchor it just a little bit more, a little bit tighter. Ease off nice and slow. Remove some of that clay skirt. Get it out of the way. Pressing down onto it. Left hand, I can see pressing into it just a little bit more. Anchoring it. Easing off nice and slow. See what we've accomplished? We have now centered on the wheel. Let's do this a few times to make sure that we know how to center on the wheel, because everything after this is going to be based off of making sure that we can center on the wheel.